Greek mythology is endowed with some of the most fascinating and unique creatures, and one of those creatures were the Centaurs. They were half men and half horse beings that stood for a transitional period between the civilized human world and nature. The ancients depicted them as being barbarians who were powerless over their instinctual primal behavior. And today, we're going to be talking about some of the most famous centaur tales of Greek mythology. So, let's not waste another moment and get right into it. Number 1. The Thalassians. Greek mythology said the centaurs lived in Thessaly, specifically in the Mount Pelion forests. Thessalians were renowned horse breeders and riders. It has been proposed that the notion of a creature who is half man and half horse originated from the intimate interaction between people and horses, since centaurs in Greek mythology seem to be a Thessalian invention, and Thessalians are said to have been the first Greeks to ride horses. If this is the case, it is possible that someone not used to seeing a horse rider thought this was actually one creature, a centaur. Ancient writers also described centaurs in the western Peloponnese. They allegedly got into a confrontation with Hercules there, but he was able to drive them away with his bow and arrows. Moreover, Cyprus and Crete were also rumored to have been home to other centaurs. Number 2. Birth of the first centaur. According to legend, Ixion, ruler of the Lapith tribe in Thessaly, killed his father-in-law while the latter was a visitor. This violation of the law of antiquity was seen to be so awful that Ixion, from a king, ended up living as an outlaw. In a rare gesture of charity, Zeus offered Ixion the chance to live among the gods on Mount Olympus. However, instead of returning the kindness, Ixion proved a little more than ungrateful. Zeus suspected his visitor had an affair with his wife Hera, but Ixion had not crossed any lines yet. Zeus, however, was not going to wait for him to. The king of the Olympian gods created a cloud that assumed Hera's form. Then Ixion was tricked and deceived into mating with this fake Hera by Zeus. Now that Zeus was sure the human was up to no good, he sentenced him to one of those unimaginable endless punishments that can only be associated with Sisyphus and Prometheus. A horrific monster was created due to his mating with the cloud. That was Centaurus, a monstrously vicious being that mated with Magnesian mares and gave rise to the race of centaurs. The only centaur not descending from Ixion's sin was Kiron, the son of Cronus. Number 3. The existence of centaurs. The Epicurean philosopher Lucretius challenged the existence of centaurs in a poem he penned in the 1st century. His primary defense was that the presence of a creature that was 50% human and 50% horse would be absurd. Why? Because horses mature at a different age than people do. Humans are still infants when they're 3 years old, but horses are at their prime at that age. Consequently, the human portion of the centaur is only starting in life, while the horse portion becomes older and gets closer to passing away. The poem by Lucretius is intriguing because it attempts to address the subject from a scientific point of view and uses logical reasons to refute the existence of a mythical being. Number 4. The families of centaurs. Zeuxis, a Greek painter, is renowned for his realistic works of art. However, one of his most well-known pieces was commended for its topic rather than its technique. A family of centaurs was seen in the picture, known as the Hippocentaur. Everyone gathered in front of the image in awe of this portrayal, which for the first time humanized centaurs and avoided portraying them as merely barbaric tribesmen. Centauridae, or female centaurs, were prevalent in Greco-Roman art after that. Sadly, the original artwork by Zeuxis has not been preserved. Artists continue to speculate on what it may have looked like despite this. Number 5. The story of Kiron. Kiron was the son of Cronus, and he stood out from the other centaurs. In addition to having the power of immortality, he was a prophet, a doctor, an astronomer, and one of the most learned characters in Greek mythology. He was a legendary instructor of great heroes, and his wisdom was unmatched and freely given. Jason, Achilles, Castor and Pollux, Theseus, Actaeon, and many more were among the most famous. A disciple of Kiron was the Greek god of medicine, Asclepius. Curiously, Kiron was where he learned what little he understood about medicine. This standalone centaur in Greek mythology stood for an ambivalent tendency. On the other hand, the Centaurs were represented by the Greeks as wild brutes, who were more similar to animals than people. On the other side, they pictured Kiron, one of the Centaurs, as the exact opposite, a celestial entity with infinite wisdom. Number 6. Centaurs could not handle wine. The Centaurimachy, or the conflict between the Centaurs and the Lapiths, is the most well-known tale in Greek mythology about centaurs. The Centaurs were invited to Perithous' marriage to Hippodamia, the Lapith king. The Lapiths and the Centaur shared an ancestor, Ixion. Therefore, Perithous welcomed them despite being well known for being barbarians. The Centaurs seemed to be acting appropriately, and everything was going fine, until the wine service started. At that point, one of the Centaurs, Eurytion, got drunk almost instantly and attempted to run away with the bride. Suddenly, in a drunken rage, the other Centaurs also made an effort to force themselves on the female visitors. The Lapiths could not remain silent in the face of this bloody uprising, and quickly drew their swords and spears to engage in fierce combat. The Lapiths successfully repelled the Centaurs, who were driven from Thessaly, thanks in large part to the assistance of the mythical hero Theseus, who was invited to the wedding. Number 7. A centaur killed Hercules. The most well-known Greek hero, Hercules, was renowned for his 12 labors. He came into contact with centaurs a few times. During one of his travels, Hercules passed from Laconia, where the centaur Pholus' cave was. Pholus welcomed Hercules into the cave, where the gracious host chose to pour a glass of wine. A group of centaurs could smell the beverage due to its overpowering aroma. And as we mentioned earlier, centaurs could not handle wine and even its smell, and they attacked the cave in a mad frenzy. Hercules defended himself by firing arrows at the attackers, several of whom were killed. During the battle, Hercules killed his friend and, according to some traditions, a teacher with one of his arrows by mistake. Zeus felt sorry for Kiron while he was dying and changed him into the constellation of Centaurus, making him eternal. Pholus also suffered harm and perished. Hercules had several interactions with centaurs, and this was by no means his last. Nessus, a centaur, tried to rape Deianira, the wife of Hercules, but Hercules shot the centaur shot with arrows in the poisonous blood of the infamous Lernia Hydra. In his final moments, Nessus handed Deianira his blood-stained tunic, telling her that if her lover wore it, it would be a magical presence for reviving a failing love. Later, Deianira handed Hercules the tunic of Nessus because of fear that he might leave her for someone else. Unsuspicious, Hercules wore the tunic, which began burning his flesh. As he tried to tear it off, it pulled his skin, exposing his bones. It got to the point where the gods decided to take Hercules with them, to live among them as an immortal after his corpse burned. And with this, we come to an end for this video. If you enjoyed these tales, make sure to motivate us by smashing the like and subscribe button. We'll see you next time. Until then, stay mythically mad.